They were able to achieve better results by actually doing less.
What if the way you eat and move could unlock the secret to living a longer life?
The key bit is personalisation. You might see something where somebody is giving generic information that might have worked for them or they believe works, but that doesn't mean that it's going to work for you.
Méline sits down with Aaron Deere, a leading physical and nutritional expert at Hooke.
What will be your advice for the people who want to lose weight or feeling better?
With the introduction of Ozempic, semaglutide, etc., we've seen a lot of people that never previously lost weight start to lose weight.
Aaron unpacks the latest research and explores how the right choices can transform your health from the inside out.
This is not something you can just snap your fingers and make the change. And the more that I worked with these guys, the more I appreciate the steps that they use to help support behavioral change.
Hi, Aaron. Nice to meet you. Clearly, you seem like an extremely fit and healthy person. And how long you're working in the healthcare system? And can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
It's been my whole life. I was a basketball player. It seems like a previous life now. And then when I stopped playing basketball, I was a strength and conditioning coach. And I was always beginning to understand more about the interactions of nutrition in terms of body composition, weight loss, performance. And then I started to really deviate more into the nutrition, but still always kept an interest with strength and conditioning. I had to make a switch from looking at kind of performance. I worked with a lot of athletes, actors, actresses getting ready for roles, and then move into more of the kind of aging and clinical space. And it was something that I always wanted to do. And, in COVID, everyone kind of reevaluated what they were doing, and an opportunity presented itself to join Hooke. And I was like really happy for that opportunity. I'm really overseeing largely the non-medical side of it. So things to do with nutrition, fitness largely.
If I'm a client here and if I want to have a nutrition and fitness plan, what the whole process going to be like?
Everything starts from the same place, and that's the investigation. You'll come in and it'll be basically about a day and a half consultations, medical, cognitive, nutrition, fitness, and then you'll have a whole set of tests and scans as well. So in relation to fitness, we've got a battery of tests that we put you through that test cardiovascular fitness, strength, power. Once we get all that information back, we then build a integrated program.
Could you tell us what is the biggest misconception people have around nutrition and health?
I feel at the moment it's a bit of information overload. And then a little bit of like helplessness, because we could probably go online and find some nutritional fact and there would be 6 different opinions about that. So if you're not well versed in the research, it's very easy to get misled. People kind of may feel like they're kind of been doing the wrong thing, and kind of lose confidence in the potential sources of that information.
I'm not come from a medical background. So imagine if I'm a person really looking forward to optimize my health according to the whole holistic kind of approach. First, I need to do the test. And then what I do, how do I do the intervention according to those results?
The key bit is personalization, because you might see an article or a podcast or something where somebody is giving generic information that might have worked for them or they believe works, but that doesn't mean that it's going to work for you. Perhaps you saw in a video that you should be taking a certain type of multivitamin supplementation. But if we test your blood markers and you have plenty of these vitamins, and the levels are good, there is no point for you to continue to take them, and they could potentially even be harmful to you.
Is there any navigation map that you can offer us to look into to make sure that we grab the real information rather than just a piece of information which might causing harmfulness to our health?
That the approach is looking for that like magic pill or magic solution, and there isn't really kind of one specific diet. that is, or one specific nutrition plan that is the kind of be all and end all. It's about understanding what the key components are. So it'll be around making sure that we're getting adequate protein and amino acids to be able to maintain and repair our muscle mass, getting adequate carbohydrates to be able to fuel us so we've got energy, getting adequate fiber so our gut microbiome is able to stay diverse, and then getting the right distribution of fats that don't lead us to have increases in things like LDL cholesterol, ApoB.
If I'm going to go deep into nutrition, so what are the common things the person could do to maximize their energy levels and their health?
If we're going to look at health and we're going to look at it in kind of a health span and longevity lens, it's about disease prevention. And there's 4 main diseases that we know are going to account for a lot of the mortality rate as we age. Those big 4 are cardiovascular disease, diabetes, cancer, and neurodegenerative disease. So we want to be able to make sure we basically bulletproof ourselves through nutrition to be able to try to reduce the risk of us developing these diseases as we age. Take diabetes, for example. So we know that we'll be able to test certain blood markers, so things like HbA1c, our fasting insulin, and then be able to prescribe dietary choices at around keeping these in check. Our glycemic function tends to get a bit worse as we age. So we have to have that consideration about what we eat now may not be the same as what we need to eat in 20 years' time. So that's kind of part of the understanding the personalization of what we're doing for a nutrition plan.
If there are some client or patient, their family members have diabetes or some kind of disease, what will be their approach to prevent that to happen in the younger age?
I suppose a really relevant for that one is cardiovascular disease risk, because you will see family members, mother, father, or grandparents that had high cholesterol levels, had high LDL levels. These people need to be even more diligent in what they're eating. And then this is also the kind of crossover to medical, because if we see this increased genetic hereditary risk, there may be medication, things like statins, that are going to help this person to reduce that cardiovascular disease risk alongside the nutrition plan.
What is your opinion or your point of view on the semaglutide like Ozempic and versus the fasting? What will be your advice for the people who want to either lose weight or feeling better?
Mm-hmm. A very interesting question. Very topical question as well. I think historically that maybe some of these medications have been demonized in terms of how they've been used. If we look at the population group that they're originally designed to be used on, so obese, overweight groups, diet and exercise normally has a pretty low success rate, but with the introduction of Ozempic, semaglutide, etc., we've seen a lot of people that never previously lost weight start to lose weight.
Right.
So as long as it's done in a controlled way, and the dosage is kind of overseen by a medical professional, I think it's actually a useful tool. Now, the key component that I think is missing in the message at the moment is the importance of resistance training to go alongside these medications. Now, the reason why it's so important is that the studies are now coming out showing that the groups of people that resistance trained several times per week whilst taking Ozempic or semaglutide maintain more of their muscle mass. So if they lost 10 kilos, 8 of that was fat and 2 kilos was muscle mass.
Yeah.
Now, the groups that didn't resistance train saw much more muscle mass being lost. And this isn't the ultimate goal in terms of what we were trying to do with the weight loss.
So do you think if somebody losing some weight or achieving good result after a period of time on those shots, do you think they can stop it and still maintain the same result?
That's the difficult part, because we see physiological change in many different levels within the body whilst on the medication. And I suppose the kind of overarching idea is that you adjust your dietary choices and patterns, but the reality of that in terms of what the research is showing, most people aren't achieving that in terms of when they stop the medication. We see other positive effects like improvements in blood glucose markers, etc. That's because of the medication. So without that, these may kind of go back. But the big thing is about behavior modification, and there is a large percentage of people where it's not working at the moment in that respect.
What about, those glucose monitors? Do you also use that with your client?
These ones are interesting. I feel they're being misrepresented about what they actually do.
Oh.
They're a pretty blunt tool,
Mm-hmm.
but they're useful.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So yes, we do use them. It's just to get an idea of what's going on with their blood glucose throughout the 24-hour period.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking for trends. We're not trying to identify specific foods. Oh, it spiked there where you had white rice. You can't have white rice. It's not used, shouldn't be used like that.
Oh.
We're looking for trends in, is your glycemic control better in the middle of the day versus the evening, for example? Do we see prolonged spikes where your blood glucose stays elevated for 2-3 hours in the evening, but you eat the same food in lunch and we don't see that?
Right.
This is the type of information we're looking for. You reported a stressful day, and let's look at how much that pushed up your blood glucose level, so we can start to understand things like this, and then that allows us to further personalize the diet. So let's say, for example, we saw prolonged spikes when you had starchy carbohydrates in the evening, but that didn't happen in the middle of the day. That tells us probably it'd be best if we put your starchy carbohydrates more towards the middle of the day, where you're much more efficient in dealing with this. I've seen people that train twice a day for the last 2 years because they believe that was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
We were able to show them, right, well, your sleep recovery is very poor at the moment because you're just so exhausted, you're too wired. And then they were able to achieve better results by actually doing less than they were doing before.
So could you tell us a little bit of the approach of Hooke? Is people changing their lifestyle?
We've got people that have gone to various health clinics or seen various experts along the way and have been unable to make change. Now, the thing that I've found here at Hooke that is different is that we have a cognitive health team to support us and help us in difficult cases. So, you were talking about behavior change. This is not something you can just snap your fingers and make the change. And the more that I worked with these guys, the more I appreciate the steps and the formula and the system that they use to help support behavioral change. These people that we deal with, clearly want to make change, but it's been something that's been going for 20, 30 years in some cases. So you really need the help of an expert in order to understand how you break these habits and how you put in new habits in their place.
When I read about Hooke, I have come across something called biopoetry.
Mm-hmm.
Could you tell us what that is?
This is like the amalgamation of your specific blood markers by area. Okay. So, you would get your blood results back. For us, we are able to group all these together. Okay. So it'll be about your cardiovascular disease risk. It'll be about your immune profile. It'll be about your cardiometabolic. So we're looking at things as systems rather than isolated blood markers.
I think about the perspective of the people who are professional athletes. Clearly, when they're younger, they have a lot of energy. They look perfect, right? They just look like a piece of art. Do you think people who work out extensively when they're younger, overall, they have a healthier lifestyle or less healthy lifestyle? Could we actually overuse our body?
Good question. So there's extremes, I think, to what you're describing. If we take bodybuilders, okay, we know there's a correlation between the amount of muscle mass that you have and how long you will live.
Yeah.
But we don't see bodybuilders living till they're 100 years old,
Right.
right? So it probably's got a lot more to do with the amount of drugs they're taking as well. But they push their bodies past what is, physiologically normal for the body or acceptable. So I think that People that are involved in sport where it's not so prolonged that it's doing you damage. So it's doing things like degradation to your joints or nervous system or anything like this. Those are the people that are going to benefit later in life with the improved cardiovascular health benefits, etc. You can only train as hard as you can recover. Okay. So by that, I mean, if you're going to work out twice a day, you need to be able to have the adequate nutrition to fuel you and recover you. Then you need to be sure that you're going to be able to sleep 8 or 9 hours a day, because that's a big load of stress. Now, if you can't do those two things, then that training load starts to become detrimental. So we have kind of different phases we might go through in terms of overdoing it. We have a phase called overreaching, where we're pushing ourselves, we're past where we can go, but we know we're going to be able to recover from that. And then we go into overtraining. Now, this is kind of the detrimental zone. So kind of what you described with your friends, they may be chronically overtrained. And when we see this, we see things like suppression of the immune system, suppression of certain hormones, etc. So this is then detrimental long-term to the body.
Yeah, as earlier, I have testing for one of those rest metabolic rate.
Yeah.
That how do you call it? What are those metrics can tell me about me, and how can I adjust my nutrition and training according to those metrics?
That test you did, the resting metabolic rate, so that tells us how many calories you need a day at rest. Okay. So this doesn't account for exercise or moving around or working or anything, but this is used as our kind of baseline to know more about your calorie requirements. Okay, for the day. So if we just kind of took the generic number of 2,500 calories per day, then we might see your metabolic rate was only 1,200 calories and you're not very active. You don't burn very much. So in reality, you may be oversupplying by 600 or 700 calories per day.
Okay.
And then if you wonder why, okay, well, why can't I lose weight? It's because it's not actually matched to your requirements. And then vice versa, if you're somebody that has a lot of muscle mass, we've seen resting metabolic rates as high as 2,500.
Right.
So then these people may actually need 3,000, 3,500 in their day, depending on how active they are.
And can I improve those resting metabolic rate by different interventions or lifestyle changes?
Muscle mass is one of the big moderators of resting metabolic rate. The more muscle mass you have, the higher your metabolic rate will be.
In an ideal world, like if people have a lot of time and willpower to do the right training, what are the percentage of different type of workout or weight training people should do to maximize their, muscle mass?
Utopian, we would want to have probably 4 or 5 sessions per week. That gives us good time to be able to work on, kind of each area of the body. If we're talking about maintaining muscle mass, you need multiple points of stimulus throughout the week. So just training your chest once in a week isn't going to be as optimal as getting kind of 3 exposures. So being able to do 4 or 5 sessions in the week is ideal. But the key is being able to program it, right? Because we talked about overreaching, overtraining. You have to be smart about how you do it. You can't go into the gym and, go 100% every single session and crawl out of the gym. That's going to end up being detrimental. You need to be able to go through phases of higher load, higher volume, etc.
My current training protocol is I will do one-time weight training with a PT and also one-time gel tonic, a one-time stretch session, and then 3 or 4 time dancing class. But those are something based on feeling that made me feel good. I have to work out after a long day of work. But I actually don't know if that's really healthy. So could you advise me if I want to even be better at my exercise schedule and dedicate 2 hours a day to work out? What should it be like?
You've hit each of the kind of main pillars that we want to get out of a fitness program there. You've got your strength training, strength and power. You've got your cardiovascular. You've got your mobility and flexibility, and you've got your balance. Okay. And they're the kind of 4 key areas that if we've got a program that's focused around health span and longevity, that we want to make sure that we include. To understand what would be potentially better or more efficient for you, we would first need to carry out all our fitness tests, because if we saw your VO2 max was really high and you were in a 90th percentile, for example, there'd be less need for us to focus on cardiovascular training. And then vice versa. If it was quite low and it was in the 30th percentile, we would need to put a big focus on so things like your dance classes, etc., and then even probably some interval work in the gym as well. And then we'd want to see things like your grip strength, your posterior chain strength, etc., to be able to understand how we specifically program your fitness regime.
At least that's me. I believe if I do more with a good intention, good result will come. But it turns out it could just be time-wise, because if you work out too late, it might affect your sleep. If you look at the blue screen too much, it will affect your sleep. It doesn't matter how good willpower you are. That's what I believe, the power of data. Data wouldn't lie. And then with good interpretation to see the growth of it, for me, that's very powerful. It definitely have changed me and my lifestyle slowly. It wouldn't be one magic moment, but I can see the change.
Do you listen to what the data tells you, or do some of the times if your HRV is dropped, do you say, oh well, no, I'm still going to work out hard today, or do you actually put the interventions in place most of the time?
I would say most of the time I don't, because how I see it is, okay, maybe physically this is better, but I always believe my brain is the most powerful thing. If I really feel like I want to do something that make me happy and excited, I will try to think, okay, what are pros and cons? Can I really just work a little bit harder because that make me happy?
That's the interesting trade-off. I'm the same way. Like my HRV, it says it's 25. Okay, I should take it easy today, and then I'm going to go to jiu-jitsu training and just train very lightly, and it never ends up that way.
Yeah.
So I'm like probably the worst advocate of listening to that as well.
Yeah, but I think that's the power of knowledge, right? For me, it's okay if you enjoy a drink or two, but you need to know what are the consequences. And if you still feel, okay, today I want to enjoy it, then enjoy it. I think it wouldn't be any wrong with it. But what will be wrong is you don't know it's bad at all. You just keep doing something.
Yeah, agree. Yeah, things, alcohol, smoking, etc. Like the long-term detrimental effects of these. I think a lot of people, don't get they know it's not good for them, but they don't get the actual associations of years off your life that's associated with these activities.
Is there any one thing you do as a routine you think contribute majority to your health?
I suppose I'd gone through different stages of what my priority was, whether it was lifting heavy weights or doing this or that. And there's one thing I started to put more focus on, and that was stretching every day. I've found that has been a big positive influence because of my injury history, my sporting history, that affect my quality of my sleep because of muscle soreness, etc. So just by introducing stretching and being consistent with it, I found that I slept better, my performance was better in terms of exercise, and this has been a big positive for me.
If you were give our audience one big takeaways on how do we keep a perfect shape as a body and as a mental state, what will be your tip?
One word: consistency. I think that is the key part, right? So I go to swim once or twice a week, and there's never anyone there when I go, because I go on like a Sunday night or something. January, it was like the freeway, right, in the swimming lanes. It was absolutely packed, and you could barely swim because everyone was there for their New Year's resolution.
Right.
Okay, I'm going to start exercising more. Now we're getting to a couple months into the year. It's now gone back to being quiet.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the bit about consistency, about being able to maintain a steady amount, a steady volume of exercise, being able to maintain dietary habits that are beneficial for a longer term rather than a shorter term.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm sure there's something not a lot of people be aware of. Thank you, Aaron.
No problem.
Thank you for watching the HumanWare Project. To help us to getting more amazing content out there, please subscribe. It means a lot and it will help us to grow. And let's go on this journey together.